This is a really fascinating article I heard about on Katie Halper's YouTube show yesterday when she was interviewing Max Blumenthal, the author here, and this is on the Gray Zone. I'll link it down below. Chaos agent. Right wing blames U.S. Capitol riot, a notorious instigator banished by Black Lives Matter. John Sullivan was at the front of the Trumpist mob in the Capitol, egging it on as he recorded the rampage. The far right is pointing to him as proof of Antifa's role in the riot, but leftist activists call him a dangerous provocateur and have banished him. The most dramatic footage to emerge from the far right storming the U.S. Capitol January 6th depicted the lethal shooting of Ashley Babbitt, a pro-Trump activist and military veteran, by a Capitol police officer. The man responsible for capturing that video was John Sullivan, a self-styled activist who has operated under alias Activist X, Activist John, and Jayden X, since an interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper, who described him as a left-wing activist. Sullivan has become Exhibit A in the right-wing's conspiratorial case, claiming Antifa was responsible for violence in the Capitol. Update. 2 days after the publication of the article, John Sullivan was arrested in Utah and charged in District D.C. federal court with one count of knowingly entering or remaining in any restricted buildings or grounds without lawful authority, one count of violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, one count of interfering with law enforcement engaged in the lawful performance of their official duties, incident to and during the commission of civil disorder. The Department of Justice affidavit can be viewed here. Through interviews with Sullivan, his brother, video journalists documenting his exploits, and Black Lives Matter activists who have encountered him, an unsettling portrait has emerged that stands at stark odds with the pro-Trump narrative about the notorious instigator. While Sullivan has attempted to brand himself as a BLM leader, he has been effectively locked out from activist communities across the country, where he is almost universally regarded as a dangerous provocateur. A close review of the raw footage he shot inside the Capitol and published on his personal YouTube channel shows him enthusiastically identifying with the right-wing rioters and their objectives, volunteering to use a knife to assist them and instigating them to commit acts of violence all the way up to the moment of Babbitt's shooting. He has insisted to me that he has no political ideology, while associates describe him as a nihilist committed to spawning chaos above all else. In his appearance on Anderson Cooper 360, Sullivan was allowed to paper over the disturbing reality by portraying himself as an independent journalist who is merely documenting the pro-Trump mob. And we'll see from the videos, I believe they're embedded in this article, he wasn't there just documenting stuff. As Blumenthal points out, he was instigating it at every moment. In the Washington Post, he was described as a liberal activist, while the centrist fact-checking org PolitiFact referred to him as a left-wing activist. MSNBC Chris Hayes played Sullivan's video at length during a January 8th broadcast, stating that it was licensed from a self-described civil rights activist. Right-wing media has feasted on these characterizations to paint Sullivan as a leading BLM figure, driving the narrative that the violence inside the U.S. Capitol is a result of leftist infiltration and not the well-coordinated pro-Trump operation it clearly was. Fox News has dedicated an entire article to Sullivan's presence at the Capitol, describing him as an anti-Trump activist with close ties to Antifa and BLM. Trump legal counsel and former NYC mayor Rudy Giuliani took to Twitter to highlight Sullivan's role in the riot, claiming him a suspected BLM activist. His post was retweeted over 28,000 times. Despite the overwhelming presence of far-right and openly white nationalist activists in the Capitol, the right wing has exploited Sullivan's presence to blame the left for a catastrophe that Trump inspired. Recent Data for Progress Vox poll showed how the right's narrative has broken through, with 47% of Americans and 68% of Republicans holding Antifa responsible for inciting the violence in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. I mean, Jesus Christ. Delusional. His mugshot from Utah County Jail. He is from Utah. So who is John Sullivan? What was his connection, if any, to the BLM, Black Lives Matter, and the wider left-wing activist community? According to self-described BLM and anti-fascist activists familiar with the 26-year-old Sullivan, he is best known for his propensity for inspiring chaos, engaging in counterproductive tactics that often trigger arrests and consistently undermine BLM objectives. From Salt Lake City to Portland to D.C., left-wing activists consider him persona non grata. The slick but scammy content of Sullivan's Insurgents USA website underscores the reputation he has earned in BLM circles as a grifter. The most extensive section of his site is dedicated to hawking expensive riot gear, including a almost $46 spear tip knife. Sullivan happens to be a former salesman who left his career during the summer of 2020 after winning a racial discrimination settlement. Here's that $46 knife. Baklava breathable face mask. Many activists have characterized Sullivan as an agent provocateur, while others have speculated that he is a law enforcement asset. What all seem to agree on is that he thrives off creating as much chaos as possible. If there is violence to instigate, he will raise it to another level, but he's not the one that does it. Sean Michael Love, a DC-based BLM activist and publisher of Black House News, said of Sullivan, and that's a dangerous type of person. That's one of the most dangerous types of people to me. Sullivan currently faces charges in his hometown of Provo, Utah, for inciting a riot and criminal mischief. Excuse me. The target stemmed from a counter-protest he helped organize against the July 2020 pro-police rally, during which a woman driving an SUV was shot by one of his associates. The incident led to the formation of the Utah Citizens Militia and galvanized right-wing forces across the state. Among the pro-Trump activists leading the charge against John Sullivan in Utah is his own brother, James Sullivan, the founder of a right-wing outfit called Civilized Awakening and a close ally of the Proud Boys. James Sullivan described John to me as an agitator who suffers from mental health issues and is driven by an insatiable desire for media celebrity. What he does is he creates hysteria and takes these phony videotapes of it, so that's why he got kicked out of the movement in Utah, James Sullivan said. Again, that's his brother talking about him. They kicked him out because he would instigate violence to the point people would get arrested, and then he would get views on Facebook or YouTube. He's doing it for attention. An apolitical agitator becomes star of Brother vs. Brother documentary project. I reached John Sullivan by phone January 8th while he still lingered in the D.C. area. He argued that his flagrant encouragement of the mob in the U.S. Capitol was textbook undercover journalism. What? No, that's not. It's like investigating into something, or like getting access into, let's say, you're trying to get access into an underground drug ring. He insisted when asked about his encouragement of the pro-Trump mob, you have to get your way in there somehow. Like, how do you do that? When I asked him about his own views, Sullivan was able to offer anything resembling a coherent political position. He initially described himself as more on the BLM side, ending the police brutality, the racial discrimination, but moments later insisted, even to this day, I don't have a political ideology. I don't have a political stance. So definitely, like his brother was saying, he just kind of seems like a grifter trying to get views and clicks on these various social media platforms for inciting, violence and outrageous behavior. Through my conversation with the Sullivan brothers, I learned that they had become the subject of a documentary by a LA-based photojournalist named Jayden Sacker. Sacker appeared briefly in Sullivan's footage inside the Capitol and could be heard congratulating him for the invasion. "We did it," she chirped to Sullivan as the mob flowed inside the building. And so that's John Sullivan. I believe that is Jayden Sacker. There's obviously Anderson Cooper. Yep, Jayden Sacker. Sacker's documentary project is being advised by Brian Fogel, who produced Icarus, the Academy Award-winning Netflix documentary on alleged doping by Russian Olympic athletes, and Dissident, which covers the murder of Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi government agents, has been endorsed by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Sacker said she hoped Fogel would agree to serve as EP on a project about the Sullivan brothers once he sees the sizzle and a demonstration of the work I've done. When I reached Sacker on January 9th, she initially downplayed the role of her documentary subject, John Sullivan, in the Trumpist rampage through the Capitol 3 days before. He's passionate. And he's apolitical, she said of Sullivan. He's against the system, but he's extremely non-violent. That's complete BS. Portraying herself as someone who is very much politically progressive and opposed to Trump's agenda, she framed her congratulatory comments to Sullivan as an expression of surprise, not approval. John knew somehow that people were considering storming the Capitol, Sacker told me. He had intelligence the days before, and I didn't believe him. I never thought that something like this would happen. And then we showed up at the Capitol. There were thousands and thousands of people there. I didn't think that we'd be able to document what was going on. So when I said we did it, I was just shocked that we got in there at all, and that we were on the front lines of being able to tell the story. Upon further questioning, Sacker conceded she was not aware of the full extent of Sullivan's actions in the Capitol. As far as reliving the whole thing, I'm still processing it, and I'm still, I think, also a little bit scared by what happened, she said. Sacker's also focused her documentary lens on John Sullivan's brother, James, a pro-Trump activist who helped organize the January 6th Stop the Steal rally in Washington. James Sullivan is a black Republican inheriting the rigidly conservative political line of the white Mormon parents that adopted him. His and John's adoptive father is Army Lieutenant Colonel who retired over 2 decades ago. In an apparent bid to protect family reputation and the Trumpist cause to which he is dedicated, James Sullivan has campaigned to blame the riot on his brother and by extension on the left forces John supposedly represented. If the recent DFR Fox poll is to believe, his efforts have been surprisingly fruitful. But the real John Sullivan is far from a committed social justice activist. Within the larger BLM community, he is considered as dangerous to the cause as any Proud Boy. In fact, after suffering the effects of his caustic presence, several DC-based BLM activists told me they now refer to John Sullivan as Proud Boy X. Wow. While describing herself as Sullivan's friend, Sacker conceded his ultimate agenda is to spawn as much destruction as possible. He's just angry, she reflected to me, and says it in a lot of his videos. Fuck the system, burn it down. He doesn't think it can be reformed. He kind of wants his civil war. He's a bit of a provocateur, and he wants to dismantle the system, and he believes the value of civil disobedience. And because he is apolitical, I think he feels more a sense of allegiance to anyone who shares the value of chaos. At the U.S. Capitol on January 6, Sullivan found destruction-minded allies in the thousands, blaming BLM for Trumpist frenzy. Storming of the U.S. Capitol by pro-Trump mob resulted in the deaths of 6 people. These included Ashley Babbitt, the pro-Trump activist who was shot by a Capitol police officer, and Brian Sicknick, a Capitol police officer who died on duty at the Capitol. An untold number were injured in the chaos, which ended in clouds of tear gas and a hail of flashbang grenades. I had witnessed a who's who of white nationalists and militia-style groups on the Capitol grounds on January 6, from the Proud Boys to 3 presenters, from Boogaloos to Groypers, not sure what the Groypers are, to members of the Traditional Workers' Party, leaders of these extremist organizations and adherents to the, I don't care, extremist organizations and adherents to the conspiratorial QAnon cult were documented storming the building. There's no doubt the riot was a handiwork of the far right wing, united under the banner of Trump's Make America Great Again motto, MAGA, diehard MAGAs. In the fallout from the rampage, Twitter permanently banned Trump's account, which I don't agree with, while Silicon Valley social media companies initiated a massive crackdown on his online supporters. Congressional Democrats have demanded Trump's impeachment and the resignation of Republican members of Congress who echoed his claims of election fraud. For his part, incoming President Joe Biden has announced his intention to introduce sweeping anti-domestic terrorism legislation, which we should all be, frankly, very concerned and fight like hell to make sure no more anti-terrorism laws get on the books. It's disgusting. James Sullivan, so that's his brother. According to James Sullivan, public outrage over the violence in Washington has completely destabilized the pro-Trump grassroots. They're ratting out each other, he said of his allies. They're running away from Facebook and they're giving up. Sullivan is the founder of the Utah-based Civilized Awakening, a small grassroots group that organizes in support of Trump agenda and invades relentlessly against BLM. On his personal Facebook page, he issued a call for black/minority Republicans to confront Antifa at Washington, D.C. Black Lives Matter Plaza on January 6th. Security has been taken care of, he wrote. I can't say more than that. Strangely, in the days leading up to the Capitol building riot, John Sullivan promoted his own January 6th action on Insurgents USA website. His call for anti-Trump demonstration directly contradicted BLM DC's statement urging counter-protesters to stay home. Not only did no one show up for John Sullivan's protests, its supposedly anti-Trump organizer went to the Capitol to encourage the Trumpist mob. Like so many of the other right-wing activists, James Sullivan has been determined to pin the violence on leftist Antifa infiltrators. He maintains that the ringleader in the PSYOP was his own brother. I know that John Sullivan was one of the people that led the riot and helped organize it, James commented. And again, what I said is that Antifa goes off of basic psychological warfare, and they're seeing that the Trump supporters are very, very emotional, kind of on a knife's edge. Antifa is organized. They're a well-oiled machine. So, they plan this to change the public opinion against Trump supporters and to create anarchy in the country. I mean, you got to really be drunk on the MAGA Kool-Aid, or I don't know, to think this was Antifa, not these raging Trump cultists. I mean, for God's sakes. On Facebook, James Sullivan has promoted Giuliani's tweet and a Fox News report implicating his brother John as the supposed BLM matter operative behind the U.S. Capitol violence. And there's his brother. Let's see, how much longer is this article? We got a ways, so I'm probably not going to read all of it because it is very long, but really super, super interesting. At the same time, he maintained to me his brother has been afflicted by psychological issues. His family found out is he's addicted to Adderall. He's not need to take it because he doesn't have ADHD, and what happens is that he becomes a little bit paranoid. It's very easy for him to act cool, calm, and collected, but he flips on a dime. John Sullivan shot back that his brother was a complete fucking liar and accused him of psychological issues of his own. However, I obtained a message John Sullivan sent to a contact after participating in the riot in the Capitol, in which he described himself as feeling mentally unwell. Sean Michael Lev, the BLM affiliated journalist, offered a more jaded perspective on Sullivan's motives. I definitely think that mentally he has some things he has to work out, but as far as him cooperating with law enforcement, that has been our belief. Sullivan has forcefully denied this allegation as well. So what was the instigator, known as alternatively as activist John and Jayden X, really doing inside the U.S. Capitol? Close review of the footage from January 6th demonstrates a clear consistency with the destructive behavior that resulted in his castigation by BLM chapters across the country and raises further questions about his motives. Let's see. Let's check out this one. This is Jayden X or John Sullivan's video.
This shit's ours. Fuck yeah. I can't believe this is reality. We accomplished this shit. We did this shit together.
Very enthusiastic with all these Trumpists.
This is fucking history. We're all part of this fucking history. Holy shit, there's so many people. Oh.
Okay, so that's Jayden X, John Sullivan. Moments later, Sullivan encouraged invaders as they rappelled up the house walls. "Let's go, you guys are savage," and offered one man his hand. If you've seen with the gas mask hanging from his belt, clearly prepared for direct confrontation. Once inside the Capitol building with the rioters, Sullivan proclaimed, "We got to burn this. We got to get this shit burnt." Gotta get this shit burnt. While proceeding down the hallway and into meeting room, Sullivan appeared to be narrating to Sacker, the documentarian who accompanied him inside. "Fuck yeah, we fucking did this shit," he boomed, briefly banging on a window, probably to signal to the mob outside. "Don't do that." An audibly irritated Sacker could be heard exclaiming, "My bad. Well, they already broke the window, so I didn't know I hit it that hard. No one got that on camera." No one except himself, apparently.
They tried to trap us in over there. They trapped a whole bunch of us in over there. They trapped us in over there. They shoved people out the other side of the building. We were just trapped.
Look at those people, Jesus.
Damn. This is a surreal scene. Holy shit. What reality is this? Oh my god, we did this shit. We took this shit. What's up, bro? Fucking yeah. Fuck yeah. Fucking did this shit. Huh? Fuck yeah.
Don't do that.
My bad. Well, they already broke the window, so, I didn't know I hit it that hard. No one got that on camera.
Except for him. Oh, man. I'll give you a hug now. We did it, she said in a voice mixed with glee and relief. You're right. We did it. Dude, I was trying to tell you. I couldn't say much, Sullivan replied. You were right. Is this not going to be the best film you've ever made in your life? He enthused the sacker. Hell yeah, she responded before nervously inquiring. Wait, you weren't recording, were you? Sullivan pledged to delete the footage, a promise he clearly did not keep.
Hell yeah. Dude, this is surreal. Look up top. Like, that's just like, oh my god. Damn. I never would have imagined that we would be here. Yeah, it's spicy a little bit.
We did it.
And that's Sacker, the documentarian.
Dude, I was trying to tell you. I couldn't say much.
You were right.
You just have to watch my chat. Is this not going to be the best film you've ever made in your life?
That's it.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Wait, you weren't recording, were you?
I'll delete that
I'll delete that shit.
shit.
No, he didn't. He posted that shit. This is where it's really interesting. People got hurt downstairs. He told an apparent commanding officer, y'all are putting yourselves in harm's way. I'm recording, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm caring about you. The mob of the people, you don't want that. The police eventually gave in and allowed the mob to pass.
I'm ready, bro. I've been too many riots. I've been in so many riots. You can't come out here.
Just juxtapose this to people who have been protesting during the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, these people literally were able to get into the Capitol and were treated with kid gloves even after that. I mean,
The point of fighting right now is kind of ridiculous for them. Like, I don't understand. Like, we're not against them.
it's a cultist. I mean, Jesus Christ. Your dude lost. Get over it.
Nobody should get hurt, you know what I'm saying? People got hurt downstairs, and I mean, y'all putting yourselves in harm's way. I'm recording, but I'm just trying to tell you. I'm caring about you. The mob of people, you don't want that. The people have spoken.
People have spoken. People have spoken. They voted Trump out of office, and these people, they're delusional. Can't understand that.